Our first scripture this morning is from Isaiah 58, verse 11. The Lord will guide you continually, giving you water when you are dry and restoring your strength. You will be like a well-watered garden, like an ever-flowing spring.
Hi. Okay, so during our time in Nicaragua, a couple of the youth decided instead of doing VBS, they would help teach first aid to the adults of the community. And I joined the group on the second day, so I wasn't there for the first day. And I saw God through the first aid in many different ways. The first would be our leaders. Our leader from Amos, Felicia. Felicia was a joy-filled, energetic leader and made the whole class get involved. It was very hands-on and also fun for us because we got to act out different scenarios with each lesson. Through this, we got a glimpse into what they were taught in first aid. And some said they would put like duck feathers on burns or pop the blisters, and that made me realize that they weren't really educated in how to treat burns in the way we were. I saw God and how we educated them on a safe and cleanly way to treat their wounds, and also how we made it fun so it would stick in their minds. Also, I saw God at the end of the course. On the first day that we talked about how to treat, the first day, we talked about how to treat cuts. In the second, we talked about how to treat burns and blisters. And on the third, the adult students were tested, and they all passed, and they all received their first aid kits and their certificates. They were all so full of excitement when they received their certificates and kits, and they all hugged us. Through this course, we had the gift of spreading universal health, which no matter where you are is needed. I'm hoping that each time the Obraje community uses one of our kits, they are reminded of us and God's love.
So I was also a part of first aid, and about every day, about 15 to 20 people showed up to the class, and it was like pretty consistent for every day. And almost everyone who came to the classes were like avid learners, and they all had their notebooks out, and everyone like rushed towards us when we had our fake wounds, and they were ready to participate with their new skills. Many of the students told Felicia how they'd been preparing for their exam all week, and they put in so much effort. They were so happy when everyone passed and everyone got their kits. They showed so much excitement and enthusiasm at the prospect of learning something new to help everyone in their community. Despite speaking such different languages, by the end of the course we had formed connections with several people. Even though I understood little of what they were saying, we could still bond over small things such as being partners during our daily icebreakers. The generosity of the community was so amazing, and I'm so thankful for the love that they have shown towards our group.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Rachel and this is Maddie, and we're going to tell you a little bit about the VBS and a little bit about the community.
So going in, we were definitely like a little nervous. Doing VBS at Prairie can always be a little bit of a challenge, let alone doing it in a different country with a different culture and definitely a different language. But nevertheless, the kids still understood what the stories and the meanings behind them. The first day, we taught the Good Samaritan, and they understood just how important it is to help those around you. And with God's love, we can really do anything. I also think they enjoyed just seeing William being pushed to the ground in our skit too, which, entertaining regardless of language. We also did different crafts. We made pipe cleaner hearts to show God's love, and made friendship bracelets kind of to show in the Good Samaritan how people are different, yet we can always be friends and we can always share each other's love. And so despite us being in wildly different places, we have these friendship bracelets to kind of to show the bonds we've created.
On day 2, our story was Jesus Calms the Storm. We did a skit that day too. Our crafts were rainbow plates, which I'm sure you saw them in the video. They half plate with nice cotton balls and all the different colors of the rainbow. And we also did pipe cleaner fish, and the kids got to put beads, which they love beads. Anything with beads was perfect. Just to show the fish in the story, and we colored.
Yeah. And then on day 3, we talked about David and Goliath, which is a personal favorite of mine, so I really enjoyed that. And the crafts we made for this day were catapults and shields. And while the kids really enjoyed making catapults, it wasn't always best to arm kids. And we were teaching them to do the catapults with cotton balls. And then Kyle starts saying, well, there's these little seeds on the ground that you can use. And they were quite large seeds. So they still enjoyed that, of course. And that was like the last day of VBS. So we all played games and we all got together. And even those in first aid who didn't get to see the kids the entire week still got to bond, and it was so fun seeing all the friendships we had made by the end of these short 3 days.
In the community, when we first got there, they were so nice. They let us sleep. The girls got to sleep in their school. They opened up the classrooms for us to work in during VBS and first aid, and the boys got to sleep in the clinic. It was just amazing how they just opened up their community to us, to these strangers just coming in to tell them how to better their lives. It was just so fun and amazing to connect with each of them and all the little kids. And even though we couldn't speak very much Spanish, we still got to know them and their age and their color and their family, and got to see their homes, and it was just a great experience.
They were some of the most courageous kids I think I've ever met, just with how hospitable they were, how ready they were to help. And I know when I was younger, I definitely wouldn't have been so open to a group of strangers who really I could not understand. And so I was blown away and really thought that they were great examples of what God's disciples are and should be. And I think the kids almost had a better or bigger effect on us than we had on them.
Probably.
Yeah. They definitely taught us all how to be courageous, how to break out of your comfort zone, and it was truly an inspiring trip.
So our second scripture today is from John 3:38. Anyone who believes in me may come and drink, for the scriptures declare rivers of living water will flow from their hearts.
Hi, I'm Maria. I'm going to talk a little bit about water. So living here in the United States, we have access to water at our fingertips, basically. All we have to do is turn on a faucet and we're able to drink it, can brush our teeth with it, cook with it, bathe in it. I never would have looked at water as a privilege until this trip. Weeks before we arrived, we were preparing for the trip and getting tips from all sorts of different people, learning what to look out for. We were told to be careful for mosquitoes and that the food would be different, which it was very different, and that the water was not going to be very safe for us to drink, so we'd have to be very careful. Being my first trip to a third world country, I was unsure of what to expect. I had an idea in my head of what it would be like, but it was not anything that I expected. The people of Nicaragua clearly did not have near the amount of privileges we have here in the United States, but yet they were the most happy and loving people to us. As we headed to El Obraje, we were unsure of the exact work we would be doing. We prepared for a VBS and a first aid class at the best we could. And we knew we would be doing some sort of work with water filtration, but we weren't sure exactly what that would look like. We went house to house each morning, interviewing families and examining their filters to make sure they were working. And so they told us that they wanted the water to be in a closed system so the bacteria wouldn't be reappearing in the water and they wouldn't be getting sick from it. And while we worked to provide families with as much filtered water and fix their filters to the best we could, I felt that El Obraje opened my eyes to a much greater importance of water, and that was living water. When reflecting on our trip to Nicaragua, John 4:13 through 14 keeps coming to mind, and that says, like, everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give them will become the spring of water welling up to eternal life. As we went to work on the different families' water filters throughout the week, we got to see many different houses, and some were smaller, some were as big as they can be. And they all had like animals running around in their house. Some had kids, some didn't. Never really saw many beds, like, I don't know, some hammocks. But each and every family we got the chance to meet had one thing in common, and that was how welcoming they were. They all just welcomed us with open arms, even though we couldn't speak their language. And at the end of every visit, they let us stand around, hold hands, and pray with them. The way that the people in Obraje were welcoming us was a really good example of God's living water. As is true with all trips, God was very present. And the staff at Amos who led us on a successful journey and showed us around Nicaragua, God was very present through them. And the kids that spoke no English but still opened their hearts and let us love on them all week, God was very present through them. We did encounter a little bit of sickness, a few injuries, but God was still very present through all of that. And in the beautiful creation, which we've talked about and you have seen, God was very present. Just the fact that he created all of that was just amazing. A trip to a third world country with youth and leaders made possible by one church with such an open and giving heart can only mean that God is so constantly present. And the 10 days we spent in Nicaragua were not just filled of filtered water at our fingertips, but instead filled by living water, which quenched all our thirsts.
All right, my name is Mason Zeller. So when I was asked to talk about my experiences, just hundreds of different memories popped in my mind. But like each one, it just became like more, it just came combined together to like make more of a whole singular memory. And that is just like that, like happiness is really only real when shared. I think there's just like tons of different memories from like, we were in the volcano, we were talking about like how Godzilla would come out. Or like when we were just in a house and then like you would have the mother talking about her life while you would just have a rooster clucking around. It's just like, I think like the language barrier just almost like non-existent when we came together. And it's just like, I think communication really is like the key to all of this. And that just, hold on here, I apologize. It's just like, there's so many different things, like constantly learning about someone, like, or just even having a casual conversation. It just shows like that we care, and that like when we're reflecting, like that even through all this natural beauty, like when we're together, like it just seems all more important. Like I think like there's a saying that like to seize the moment, but there are just many times like I would stop, I would see people all doing their own thing, and just like says like that the moment really seizes us. Like you could like look around, everyone's like just living without any worries. I just think this whole trip, it just brought us together. It makes us realize what like the true beauty is in this world, and like that's like the true beauty of God in its most stripped down form, is that we're just all living here together, and we all love each other. So.
I'm Aloma, and I will be speaking about how I saw what it means to be a disciple during this trip. So we often take on different positions or task ourselves with certain responsibilities, and before we decide to become a pastor or a doctor or a teacher or chairman of a committee, we like to know what it is we're signing up for. In like manner, our faith calls us to live as disciples of Christ, and I think our trip to Nicaragua exemplified the ways we can live as disciples of Christ. But first, what exactly does it mean to be a disciple? By definition, a disciple is someone who adheres to the teachings of another, a follower or a learner. So to be a disciple of Christ means to learn to live like him. When I sat down to write this, I for some reason thought I would end up with one definition of what it means to be a disciple of Christ. But as I thought about a trip to Nicaragua, it became obvious that being a disciple of Christ means a whole lot of things. Disciples of Christ strive to be open to being uncomfortable. And the first example of discipleship I witnessed in Nicaragua was through David and Laura Parajon, the directors of Amos Health and Hope. David and Laura had met in the U.S. while they were still in graduate school. As their friends and classmates were headed up to different hospitals and clinics around the country, they felt a calling towards mission work. So they decided to move to Nicaragua, where David had been born, and start a ministry. The work in Nicaragua has saved a lot of lives, but as I thought about it, I realized that I don't think I would be able to do what they did. Here's the thing. The United States has more opportunities than Nicaragua, and deciding to move to Nicaragua means giving up a lot of those opportunities. For example, education. The system in the U.S. is not perfect, but it has more opportunities than the system in developing countries. We have air conditioning, we don't have to sleep in mosquito nets, we have running water, and we don't worry about having clean drinking water. You could open the tap in your bathroom, drink the water, and you'd be fine. Our roads are in great condition, and our mail gets delivered straight to our doors. These are just some of the things we enjoy here in the U.S. And regardless of all that, David and Laura relocated their family so they could serve as disciples of Christ. As we learned about Amos and the communities we were visiting, we found out that the individuals who make up these communities weren't just waiting for us to come in and help complete a project. Instead, they were serving each other and were also willing to accept help when they needed it. For example, each community has a health promoter, who is a member of the community that has not only been chosen, but has also accepted the responsibility that comes with being the health promoter. This individual is basically the community's doctor and nurse. They volunteer to get training on basically anything from basic wounds and illnesses to putting in stitches. The health promoter works hand in hand with the committee, and their job is to basically keep their community healthy and plan ways to achieve the goals they set for their community. Perhaps even bigger than their willingness to accept such responsibility was their willingness to accept help. I imagine it would be easy for them to not want some teenagers coming into their communities, but instead they took the risk and gave us the opportunity to serve alongside them. Lastly, what it means to be a disciple was also showcased in our water supervision guides. Each morning, as we went out to supervise water filters, we were broken up into groups of Prairie youth, a member of Amos, and a member of the community. More often than not, the member of the community was a kid less than 12 years old. As a kid, I imagined they'd rather be playing or sleeping. Instead, at such a young age, they were out there, helping us find our way around the communities, and seeing that was eye-opening. If a young child can take such initiative, then why can't we? Lastly, I also sought God, or what it means to be a disciple, through our church here at Prairie while we were in Nicaragua. I kept thinking about how much it would cost to come to Nicaragua in comparison to how much it would cost my family to go back to Nigeria. And I just realized that considering we only paid $600 to come on this trip, to realize that we have a church family that's so loving and so open and so giving to send us on these trips and have us have these experiences just means the world. And it's exactly what it means to be a disciple. It's being able to go out there and work alongside people and get experiences that are going to last us the rest of our lives. So thank you for doing that.